So thank you all for joining this. And first, let me thank CI Confederation of Indian Industry for organizing this and Conneqt Business Solutions for sponsoring this event. Thank you again, actually. So let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Kalyan Krishnamurthy. I'm going to be the moderator for this session. A quick introduction about myself with over 25 years of experience with banking and financial services with more than 2 decades. Having worked in multinational banks and as well local banks in India and Middle East, led large transformation initiatives, innovation and digitization initiatives across. So that's about quickly introduction about me. I have a PhD in digital service quality management as well. So without taking much time, actually, let me give you a quick prelude and then I'll introduce the panelists in a moment. So what is this all about? This global roundtable discussion is all about, we are facing one of the biggest, largest crises we have ever known in the past, the pandemic, and we are just slowly moving on to the new normal. So in this context of this pandemic and new normal, how does the digital transformation plays into the banking and financial services? That's a critical question in all our minds, actually. Even before COVID, we all know that banking was going through a significant, enormous change, actually. Be it a fintech, digital currency, you name anything, banking was the first to try out any of these digital interventions. But with this pandemic and moving into the new normal, this has further necessitated, actually, all of us to move into digital. And that's the whole topic around this discussion that we're going to have. So before we jump into some interactive discussions with the panelists, let me quickly introduce the panelists here. Actually, we've got a interesting panel of experts with different perspectives. We got a customer experience perspective, we got a technology perspective, we got an operations perspective, someone from regulatory and risk and compliance perspective. So there are multiple perspectives that we have to take and look at how we look at digital transformation in this new era of new normal. So first, let me introduce Abdulaziz Ali Awad Sir from Oman. Could you raise your hand? Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Abdulaziz. So about Abdulaziz is a very seasoned banking professional from the Sultanate of Oman. He has more than 2 decades of experience in various functions in banking, especially in customer service, operations, sales, marketing, and distribution. He has led Bank Dhofar through various pioneering initiatives. In fact, if you visit the Muscat Mall branch, you can see his actual work that has come into play there. Actually, he has built a very lean and agile branch. A customer walking into that branch will definitely have a wow experience, because I myself visited, actually. And he has also been instrumental in setting up a drive-through banking services, first of its kind in the Sultanate of Oman. So he has led many customer-centric initiatives in the Bank Dhofar, actually both digital with process and people initiatives. So he comes with a lot of experience, so we'll hear him more about customer experience and how this digital intervention is going to impact the customer experience. Just to give a quick introduction about Bank Dhofar for those of people outside of GCC, Bank Dhofar is one of the largest banks in Sultanate of Oman, with over 70 branches and over 120 ATMs across. And one of the banks, since I have consulted both in India and Middle East, from my view, one of the very few banks which blend the culture of tradition and innovation, the local tradition and culture with the innovation and digitization. So that's a very powerful combination, and that's how they have been successful so far. So welcome, Abdulaziz.
Thank you, Dr.
The next on the panel is from India, Mr. Nalin Jain. So Nalin Jain is currently the Chief Customer Officer and the Head of Operations of Godrej Housing Finance. He is also the co-founder So he heads the operations, digital, customer experience, and customer delivery, service delivery. He has more than 2 decades of experience only in the retail banking space. We'll get to hear a lot from him in terms of compliance, competition, how do we, manage the whole business from a service provider perspective. Unlike what we saw in the customer experience, we will also see from the service provider perspective. So he has led a lot of large-scale transformations, scaled up businesses. He comes with a fantastic pedigree with a management degree from IMT Ghaziabad, and he is prior to Godrej Housing Finance has worked at multiple banks like IDFC, First Bank, Kotak Bank, Citibank, Standard Chartered Bank. So welcome, Nalin. The next on the panel is Mr. Nazir Dalal, Chief Operating Officer of Conneqt Business Solutions. He has over 30 years of experience, wealth of experience in the banking and BPO industry. He's been providing all the leadership strengths to deliver on a verticalized service structure in both Indian and international markets. He has served as CEO of Enex Financials. He has been an executive director of Prudential Process Management Services. He was also an ex-CEO of Standard Chartered Bank. He brings in a wealth of experience from the retail banking space, banking and financial services space, including shared services. Welcome, Nazir. Thompson is what you see there on the left-hand top. Thompson Jnanam. He is the Chief Digital Business Officer for Conneqt Business Solutions. He has got over 27 years of experience. He has led a lot of P&L, sales, marketing, business and digital transformation and outsourcing management practices. In the past, he has worked with various multinationals. He's been having a incredible global experience in enabling clients through large transformation-led consulting methodologies. He's currently running the digital business for Conneqt Business Solutions. He is a proud co-author of Hewlett-Packard Global Business Financial Services operating model on the BPO space. Welcome, Thompson. So, without taking much time, let's jump on to a discussion into what is this all about and the way we have structured this, we will run some poll surveys in between. So audience, please be aware and be attentive so that you can participate in those polls, get your ideas and thoughts. And as I told you, we will open the forum for the audience questions at the last. So please use your questions box to raise your questions. And then we will also ask you for your feedback and suggestions for the banking and financial services, which you can post it in the chat box. Of the postings, whichever is the best ideas and suggestions as selected by the panelists, will be getting some exciting prizes. The organizers will be in touch with you post this event. So let's get started. So this question is to Thompson. So basically, Thompson, you come from a digital background, technology space, and you have also combined that with the processes, and the practices, how it is helping business to achieve its efficiency and effectiveness. Now, this pandemic, we all know that has accelerated that digital banking practices beyond what we have seen in the past, more than even before COVID, as I told you, banking has seen a lot of such things. So I just want to hear your views on how this acceleration is helping. What are your views on these accelerated digital banking practices, especially during pandemic and also in the new normal? Thompson.
Sure, Kalyan. The pandemic has really accelerated digital transformation, as you said, because the last 6-7 months, I see almost 5x, increase in terms of, digital transformation adoption across industries, and even if you look at from a banking perspective, and as a service provider, we interact with our customers and definitely within the banking space, and we have seen a huge change happening. And if you look at the industry and Indian economy, if you look at it, 1 year ago we were talking about a less cash economy, trying to become a cashless economy, but I think the last 6 months we just accelerated into a cashless economy. The building blocks of a true digital economy has taken shape. It's like a reset button that's been kind of pressed. So the way I look at it is like, all innovation and invention happens when there's a huge necessity. I think this has really tested all of us this time. As an industry, we have tried to figure out as organizations, as employees, as people, we have all been challenged to see how we could probably think out of the box and kind of overcome the status quo. That's a key thing which is happening. If you look at banking, it's tested everything, in terms of true touchless, contactless banking. You name it, everything has come to the fore right now. The whole mix of a physical versus virtual versus a digital channel mix, if I may say, from a customer experience perspective, has changed overnight. Almost overnight has changed because we didn't have a choice, right? In this lockdown, saying that, do I have a choice of physical? So it's that the necessity which has really driven the ecosystem adapting to a kind of a digital mix. So that's the moot point. But then the large question is, were you ready really to manage an end-to-end seamless customer experience through digital? Maybe not. But I think what has happened is that this is really testing every bank, every organization to say that, in a true customer lifecycle journey, right? How do I graduate? How do I graduate from CIM, if I call it like customer interaction management, to CCM, to customer care management, to CPM, customer value management? I think that has really been, challenged, and it's also in one way positively kind of, accelerating it. And I also see that, one of the key differentiators, the way I look at it, from a digital, is customer empowerment will always drive customer delight. Back to the customer. That will be the true success of. And going back to basics, the need for customer service. Dwell on that a bit. Why do we need customer service? We need customer service because there is a broken process is a potential impact to customer experience. Now, in a lockdown scenario or post-pandemic, we suddenly realized that we had done a lot of front office digital. We had all these bots which are functioning. But what we didn't do is, we didn't integrate these front office digital transformation innovations with the back office and middle office to really provide an end-to-end seamless experience to our customers. That has now opened up huge opportunities, and every bank is now trying to accelerate and see that how do I kind of stitch all these disparate systems together. That's one. Second thing, another thing which we saw, is in this pandemic, a lot of our customers and bankers as well, seeing that how do we quickly ramp up? We've been traditionally a kind of a physical infrastructure-led delivery model, right? Now they're saying that, okay, now how do we kind of overcome this? So then bankers started experimenting, saying that can we have virtual work from home? Then how do we balance work from home with data security issues and things like that? So kind of we started co-creating this, so that's the second step. Now, slowly we are getting used to this borderless workforce. It's becoming a new norm. Now, how do I run a borderless workforce with all the security norms and privacy norms which is required? So all these are evolving. The second important trend is the entire AI and NLP-based cognitive bots. There are doing plenty of bots around. But now then, how do we now, these standalone bots can be now integrated into mainstream, integrated into a human-driven process is happening right now, because all these standalone processes are now getting consolidated. So that's the one trend which I would say which is happening. And in my mind, from a overall digital technologies such as AI, ML, and self-learning systems are also now suddenly we are realizing the power of that, because we are suddenly seeing that to drive customer empowerment, I need to have hyper-personal to my customer better. All this is now coming together because all these building blocks were already there. It's not like we invented this the last 6 months. They were there. So they're all coming together, and we're now stitching all these together to kind of solve customer problems. So and then some of these buzzwords like digital first, digital native, and it is also kind of breaking some of these myths, saying that it does not mean that digital first or a digital native or a digital only organization or a digital only bank does not mean that we're going to run an entire customer experience using a machine. The best in class customer experience can be delivered by a bank, if I may put it. It's only by empowering their employees and empowering their partner employees with the required insights, which are now being fueled by cognitive AI technologies, to give an extremely delightful experience to customers. So that's the kind of trend which is happening, and ultimately the success of, if I look at it, digital transformation, Kalyan, the way I look at it, can happen only if you can make it seamless and manage it end to end. Those seamless humanoids or digital workers and human beings working together seamlessly. In conclusion to your question, Kalyan, the way I look at it is digital technology can be replicated, but the humans are going to become the superhuman employees, because they're going to be powered and digitally enabled by cognitive capabilities, which will really help a particular bank to differentiate oneself from competition, because using digital transformation, we'll be creating more simple, intuitive, and secure, empowered processes for our customers. Thanks, guys.
Excellent, Thompson. In fact, the key takeaways I look at is it's not about customer interaction, it's about customer value, which is a very important takeaway. And you rightly said, actually, we all have this front-end experience given to the customers, but at the end of the day, if it's not integrated seamlessly with the back-end, that's where all the trouble comes in. And we all seen that, having worked in banks as a service provider and as well as a customer, we all see that. I give this jokingly an example. Banks want to have a Ferrari body with a Suzuki or a Toyota engine at the back end. You want to deliver a Ferrari with an engine of 800cc or 1000cc Toyota or a Suzuki, which is a big challenge for the service provider. So, and also we could see that how this is accelerated. So great insights, Thompson. Thank you for that. And I'll come back to you with a few more questions on digital.
Sure.
But before that, let's quickly do a poll with the audience, and let's see what the audience think about this particular question. So may I request Meenakshi to run this poll, and then while I explain. Yeah. The question is, I predominantly make and receive payments through which mode? Is it check, e-wallets, cash, mobile banking, iBanking, or I visit a branch and do this? Choose only one option, and let's hear from the audience what they think. Audience, you're requested to quickly vote on this question, please. Beautiful. So we got about 72% of the audience believe that, or they are actually making, it's not believe, actually, they're actually making and receiving payments through mobile banking or iBanking. And the second goes to e-wallets. Check is dwindling, which we all know. Somebody predicted the death of a check by 2020, but it has not happened so far, but still people are using some checks. So 7% through checks, probably it is because of safety and security. And cash is only 2%, and that's where the pandemic has really made an impact, I think. Yeah. Excellent. Thanks, audience, for that survey. So let's relate that to that poll, and let's move on to Abdulaziz, to hear his views on this. So, if you, Abdulaziz, can I have? Yeah. Okay, so Abdulaziz, if you see, be it in GCC or even in Oman, people want to have a physical banking experience. They want to visit some branches. And of course, now the millennials from young Omanis and, all the GCC people have changed, and they are having smartphones and they use all those things. But still, there are people wanting to visit, use checks only. They feel, the safety, security. There's something that they are really looking for, right, Abdulaziz? What are your views on this? We used to talk about banking at doorstep. What are your views on this?
Thank you for your question. But if you allow me, before answering your question, if I can just say that the only permanent item in the change is the change itself. This is number one. Number two, we have to believe that everything is happening for a reason. Now, based on that, if I can start answering your question by saying that if we go back 15 years back, how banking was happening, what was the demand from the customer point of view, needs, nature, requirement, it's totally different what we are talking about banking today, and I believe it will be totally different about the future's banking. Now, there are people who used to think ahead and just try to think what could be the requirement of the service, of the banking, of the needs of the customers in futures. Saying that, so when we talk about digital banking, actually, as you know, we have started our transformation journey 5 years back, 2016. And the vision was how to be a digital bank in futures, fully digital. Now, going to that area, I believe it will not be easy. It has to go through steps and occasions and directions from time to time, number one. Number two, highlighting what you have said, that in our culture here in GCC, especially in Oman, we do have people who are looking for using a click of eye to do a transactions. In the meantime, we have a people whom they want to count their money by their hands in order to make sure that they are real. So between those people, we have to be in between. We have to serve the digital mindset, and we have to serve the people who like the people touch person, who can talk to me, who can give me eye contact, body language. He has to welcome me in a warm. He has to deliver for me a smile. So we have to be driving this and that also. So giving some examples, we do have, for example, our mobile banking app, where you can do 80 to 85% from your banking requirement or transaction. In the meantime, as you mentioned about our branch, which is, we call it the flagship branch, where you have to visit and do your transaction there. However, even in that branch where people has to come and do their transaction physically, we have also done digital Zoom. So the moment the customer enter the branch, the staff, after understanding his requirement, he has to drive him to the digital zone, where it can ATM, CDM, mobile, the site of the bank, internet. So we are trying step by step to move the people from normal traditional banking to a digital banking. However, it has to be in a very careful manner, to avoid losing those rich people, as you have mentioned, who like to see, who like to feel, who like to interact. Because nowadays banking, it's not only about serving. Now the banker has to become an advisor to the customers. So becoming an advisor to the customer, you have to know him very well. Now going back to the question where banking has to be at the doorsteps, we are actually looking to the banking has to be in your pocket. So it's not only about banking coming to you, banking has to be with you everywhere, all the time. The time you need the bank has to be with you. In the meantime, actually, if you ask me, we are planning now to have next year something called instant service. So instead of customer logging to the mobile or going to a branch or any of our channels to request, actually we are planning to be instant, to know his requirement before he asks. So going back to my statement, when I say everything is happening for a reason, going to this pandemic and this COVID-19. Now, there are people who started earlier and they are now ready to serve their customer, whatever the situation is. And they are the people and some banks and companies just now starting to thinking about how to be digital. So they will lose, I believe, and they will be late on the market. Their market share will be less. Their customers might leave, because if they cannot serve their customer while they are quarantined at home, then customers will be looking for a place where he can be served, as you mentioned, at home or wherever he wants. So saying that even we launched last month, you can use the ATM using your mobile number. By having your mobile number standing in front of the ATM, you can actually withdraw, you can transfer, you can do any request. We do have also cardless cash. Without card, you can get your cash. So saying that, we believe it's only the beginning. We are looking for more and more. We don't know how future demand will be. Maybe our audience can help us so we can think ahead and prepare our future for our customers. So it's mostly about making the balance between all type of customers. People who are young, are innovative, you have to be there for them. People who are in between, you have to provide the both. Type of customer where they need a traditional banking, you have to be also there with them, because the bank should be for all across the world. It's not only for specific people. If you want to sustain and growth, you have to be available for all. I hope I answer your questions, and I'm ready if you want to inquire your thing. Thank you, Dr. Conneqt.
Thank you, Abdulaziz. I mean, that's a great insight, actually. The most important point, I like the way that you said, it's not about banking coming to me, it's banking is with me, actually, in my pocket. So that's a very great insight, actually. And the most important point you rightly said, actually, I mean, it varies from region to region, geography to geography. We're going to talk about that a bit in detail in demography and psychography of customer and what they expect, actually. But you rightly said, I mean, it's a balancing act between brick and mortar banking and digital banking. I mean, most of the people or many of the people still might want to feel, hear, have the cognitive senses of the banking, actually touch the cash rather than having it as a number in front of my system. I think it's a whole set of changes that is happening. But I like the way you said, actually, it's important to balance it, not only balance it, but also make sure, even if you have digital, make it as much possible as real. Because if I'm talking to a virtual relationship manager, I should not feel that I'm talking to a machine. I should be feeling that I'm talking to an individual who I can ask as much or whatever I want to get responded to, not just, that's the maturity that digital interventions are happening. And I think we will see that more in future as well. Thanks, Abdulaziz. But adding on to this, let's look at the point on the next one is on about the new customer versus existing customer. There's a classic dilemma in any bank, Abdulaziz, is in some of the banks, wherever I've seen, actually, I myself have been a banker as well. So sometimes we forget the existing customers are focused on more on new acquisitions, or sometimes we go in for the promotions, freebies, and various other things only for new customers and forget the existing customers. There are many other things that is happening. So the classic dilemma of new customer, how do I treat him? Or the existing customer, is it being differently treated? Because if you treat an existing customer like a new customer, then it's a pain, actually, in terms of whatever that you're going to do, cross-selling, upselling, whatever selling that you want to do, and the services that you want to provide. And also on the hyper-personalization, I want to hear your views on what do you think about this dilemma, classical dilemma of, new customer versus existing customer?
Thank you for that question. But existing, again, I will use the word balance between the new and the existing customers, where, as you mentioned, most of the people acquiring as much as you can. So your numbers are going high, your number of accounts open, you are going high. In the meantime, if they ignore the existing customers, this is a totally, sorry for using the word crime, but from my point of view, it's a crime. And I will start by saying what's the reason. Now, if I can use a very simple examples. For me, you are a customer actually, if you allow me to say this. So when I met you first time, I don't believe that our interaction, our understanding was that clear. But I believe after going 3-4 projects together, the way we talk, the way we understand each other is totally different. I start understanding how you look at things. I start understanding how you think about things you want to say. In the meantime, you have also the same understanding about how Abdulaziz is thinking, what he's saying, what his requirement, how he think, what is his look, what's his vision, what he's looking for. So from that point of view, but we believe that as much as you understand your customers, actually you can serve him better, you can sell him more, so your business can grow more actually, and in the meantime you can understand his requirement. So there's something called CRM in banking, which is customer relationship management, which is now the key. The CRM or the customer relationship management will give you all the time data, and this is the most valuable item in all service organization. Data is the key. Data is the key. Sorry for repeating that, but because also I believe data is the key. So now we'll talk about both an existing customers, using the data about my existing customers, knowing where he is using his debit card, where he is traveling, what is his habits, where he is shopping, what type of car he's buying, what type of phone he's buying, where he spent his night yesterday, where he used to use his Visa card or debit card or whatever. Now that data, if I convert it to a details analysis about that customer, about his behavior, his usage, I can automatically know what type of customer I have in front of me and what type of product I can sell. So existing customer for me, it's a very valuable, equal to a new customer I'm acquiring to the bank. So by knowing his behavior, by knowing his spend, knowing his way of thinking, I can also introduce, and we have already done it actually in our bank last year, something called wow moment. Wow moment for a customer, you cannot do it unless you know him. So know him because he's your customer. It's a very valuable key to sustain and to grow. And also from our experience, we have seen that many of the cases, no need for you to go out to acquire people. I'm not saying not to do, but what I'm saying, sometimes if you serve your existing customer properly, they will be the marketing tools for you for the others. We have seen some of the success stories of our some of our branches, where the way they serve the customers, automatically when he is coming to the next visit, he's bringing someone with him. So using again the word I used in the beginning, balance between how to use or how to serve your existing customer to maintain the relationship, it's very important, equally to how to acquire the customer from the market through another advertisement, through an incident, through a moment, through an incident, whatever it can happen. Because a walking customer coming to deposit a check for his company, if he has a great experience during that service you are providing to his company, easily to convert him to a customer. This is number one. Now, in the other hand, existing customer, if we will not give that focus and continue delighting him with wow experience with something he will be happy with, either he will think to move to another banks, your competitors, or he will not be talking good, which is bank reputation also as well. So if you ask me personally, existing customer currently, especially in current situation, is more important than new customers. However, the new customer, the moment he's become customer, is existing. So focusing, it will be equal and it will be the same. So having said that, knowing your customer is a key. Maintain your relationship with your existing customer, also another key. Trying to acquire customers, it is also another key in your hand. However, data, I will repeat, data is very important, but it is important as much as you use it carefully and powerfully. So knowing your customers, as you mentioned, KYC, it is a useful element for you as much as you use it correctly. So we have done some of the wow moment for our customer using our CRM platform. For example, in our last National Day event, there are people who born on that National Day, same day. So there are kids having a birthday on the same day of our National Day, and there are young people, and we have also old people. So we have specified an event for each one of them, and we have surprised them by, for example, if he is a kids, we have visited them in their schools, and we have you can say enjoy their birthday celebrations with their colleague on the school. So everybody was saying, why Bank Dhofar is coming here to our school to a kid's his age is only 6 or 7. So we told them he is our customer for the last 5 or 6 years. Today is his birthday, and we wish him the happiness life. So I can tell you, I can confirm to you even by numbers, because you always believe on numbers, Dr. Kalia, that after that visit only, maybe around 50 accounts open within 2 days. Now, using the same experience and moment, because of the data we have for our existing customer with the youth, visiting them in the university, it was also wow moment for them. And we visited some of our old customers. Maybe their age, it was between 60 and 75. Now, the way of thinking is different. The way of thanking the customer is different. However, this is only because of we are using the data and in the right way. So I hope I was able to answer your questions about
absolutely.
Thank
you, Abdulaziz.
Questions or feedback, I will be ready to.
Sure. Thank you, Abdulaziz. In fact, that's a very beautiful insight that you gave, how to wow a customer. And basically you're saying Bank Dhofar is not a banker to a customer, it's a banker to the customer's family, friends, relatives, everyone. That's how you're looking at it. And it's not just banking, it's about financial advising, and you're going beyond what you're doing. That's a great way to go in terms of customer experience. But having on this topic on existing customer, new customer, we all face this. In day-to-day life, in terms of sometimes being ignored as an existing customer, and then I want to attract from a bank, I want to move out of a bank actually. I just want to do that, but I can't do that. But it's like an Indian marriage actually. Divorce is very difficult because there is a pre-closure fee. There are various other bureaucracies and policies and procedures around that from switching over. My cost of switching is also very high. My pain of fulfilling certain formalities to move from one bank to another bank is also very high. There's a lot of more things. So I'm like a husband married or a person married actually, and then I have to stay in that relationship throughout actually because of all this pains that I go through actually. So before we jump into the next discussion, let's quickly run a poll. From the audience, I would like to know, basically, how many of you, can we run that poll actually, Meenakshi? Yeah. Given a chance, how many of you will want to switch over from your main bank to another bank? Please answer the question, yes or no. Let's see the results. Oh, I will switch over from my main bank. No is 75, but still 25% of the people are saying that they would want to switch over from their main bank to another bank. That means they're not satisfied in some way or the other with their banks. Now, let's talk about that point a bit, actually, Abdulaziz, before I move on to the next panelist, actually. So, your views on customer attrition and what are the things that you're doing, and with the digital intervention, I know that you did explain on CRM and how you're understanding the customer and everything. But customer attrition is also very critical, right? Actually, because you don't want any of the customers to go out of you, because you want the existing customers to promote you. That's why we have the NPS, Net Promoter Score. So what are your thoughts on this customer attrition? And look at the audience poll, 25% of the people, of course, it not relates to one bank. Actually, I'm talking about generally banking as a scenario. At least I've seen this in my research also. 20 to 30% of the people really want to move out of their existing bank to another bank, but they're tied up. They can't divorce as easily as they would want to. What are your views, Abdulaziz?
First of all, those 25% people who want to leave their banks, I can welcome them to open an account in Bank Dhofar here in Sultanate of Oman. I would be very happy to do that. However, see, this is again linked to the previous questions. We have to be careful. See, I believe you know something called do more, get more, yeah? So, do more, get more, if you convert it to this subject by saying stay more and be served differently. What I mean by that, see, actually, the customer who is with me since we established this bank in 1990, I believe he deserves something back, yeah? Because if he's banking with me for the last 30 years, he has to be different than the customer who just joined me now. So again, this is all will go back to the data and CRM, as you clearly mentioned right now. So actually, if the customers, there should be a difference between the customers who is doing 100 transactions with me and the customer who is doing only 1 transaction a month. There should be a difference between the customers who is having all type of products in my bank and who is having only 1 product. There should be a difference between the customers who is banking with me for the last 10 or 1 day or 15 or 30 years. So what will actually keep the customer, those who has selected to remain with their banks? I believe there is something in their mind, and there is a reason for answering no, I don't want to leave my bank. So that no, I believe the driver for that, it could be an incident or a service he got from that bank, or maybe even an employee on that bank who is giving him that feeling or that experience, or a situation where the customer was on need and the bank was there for him. So those people who said no, I believe that reason, we have to do more analysis on that reason and build on that, because customer, see, we do have customers who are getting actually, if we are talking about banking and rate and numbers, some of the customers still they will stay with you, even they are getting less rate on their fixed deposit, or they are getting less rate on their facility, but still they will say no, I need to banking with you. So driving a customer experience, driving the confidence, capturing the customer needs, using your data and CRM for all details related to that customer. It will really allow you to retain that customer, not only for a small period of time, even for his long life. Why? Because the belief you will have on him, it will really play a major role on how he will think whether to leave or to go. Now, from the digital point of view, how to retain those customers in a digital way, I will go back by saying not everyone has to be retained by having a digital channels. Some of the customer can be retained by a visit. However, now we are actually driving people to do their transaction digitally through our channels and mobile and this. So there we are saying, as much as you do transaction, you are getting some reduce in the fees and charges and this. So by this customer feel, if I stay in this bank and I continue 5 years, this is what I get. But if I continue 10 years, this I will be getting. If I continue 15 years, this is how this bank will treat me. So now, if he knows what he will get if he stay more, automatically his mindset will take him to that how I continue my relationship with this bank. From the bank side also, we have to make sure whatever promise we give, we have to give it on the time as promised. Now, customer at the end is a person. How you want to handle your relationship with him? You have given your example about husband and wife. Now, I don't want to use that example, however, because husband and wife relationship is totally different than banking. However, continue your life with your wife has reasons. So as much as you maintain those reasons, believe me, your relation will continue until you die. So going back to banking, any customer in this world is going to open an account for a reason. He is requesting for that product for a reason. He is asking for that service for a reason. So as much as you know the reasons, you can maintain that relationship, as simple as it is. So, but you cannot know the reasons unless you know your customer very well. Going to be the fastest bank, just doing the transaction as much as you can, and customer will go. It will only fulfill your customer requirement for that moment. However, knowing the reasons will allow you to know why he is doing, when he is doing, and how he is doing, so you can think ahead. So that I believe it will help a lot in maintaining the relationship with that clients or that customers. And back to the point I mentioned in the beginning about becoming an advisor instead of someone is doing a service to the customer, and that relationship between advisory and the customers, it really will make the relationship very strong, and it will sustain forever.
Thank you, Abdulaziz. That's a great insight. In fact, it's a balancing act. After all, we are dealing with human beings. We have to be sensitive to that. It's important to understand the customer and move on. So let's quickly hear from Nazar a related question to this from an operations perspective. So what I'm looking for is actually at the end of the day, whether it's retaining the customers who are willing to move away from the bank or the financial service, be it, I'm talking about not just banking, it could be NBFC, it could be microfinance or whatever actually. So the back-end processes and how do we onboard the customers, how do we get them, be it an asset or a liability product, it could be a new loan, new lending or a new facility that is being offered to the customer. So what are your views? I just want to hear from you, Nazar, in terms of how a digital solution, the policies, procedures of a service provider could help in rapid onboarding of customers. I want to underline the word rapid because those days we used to talk about days, then hours, minutes. Now we're talking at the sip of a cup. There's one bank which advertised saying, you have a cup of tea and by the time you would have your account open. And somebody said, why you have to come to the branch? We'll open it at your doorstep and so on and so forth. So what are your views on, how do we ensure this rapid onboarding of customers, Nazar? You may have to unmute yourself.
Yeah,
go ahead. We're able to hear you.
Yeah. Thank you, Kalyan. And a very warm welcome to all the participants who are listening in, have been listening for the last 45 minutes, and happy to collaborate with CII to sort of bring this roundtable for all of you. Before I answer the question, I think I would like to actually step back, and talk a bit about, the genesis of, what we, saw till the earlier part of the, of this decade, or, maybe into the late early 2000s, is the fact that, when retail banking evolved. So as we all know, it started from the wholesale bank, in terms of, both the domestic and the international banks, and, some of the foreign banks, were actually some at the vanguard of retail banking starting the late 80s and early 90s. So a lot of the players, in the Indian BFSI space, so you could put the private sector banks in one bucket, you could put the nationalized banks, the NBFCs, they all evolved at different points in time, and typically the way they evolved, was when they started automating, they first spotted the core banking system, whatever you may call it, and then you had separate add-on or bolt-on systems, and they would actually at most times really not talk to each other, So I think that was really the genesis, of some of these sort of problems we have seen in the past, where systems operate in silos. There is a lack of a unified customer view in terms of, the various products a customer could have. So, I remember when I started my career in banking in the 90s, if a person had a deposit and if a person had a loan, you wouldn't know it in one click, that, he's both an asset and a liability customer in that sense. So starting from there, I think we have evolved, over a period of time. We have built those customer interfaces. We have looked at how do we make, some of the transactions straight through in that sense. And therefore, of course, this was happening much before the pandemic, which happened earlier in the year. So the move to unify, the move to get one view of the customer, has been in progress for a while. And as you rightly said, Kalyan, the turnaround time is now really becoming a competitive differentiator. In terms of how do we ensure, that whilst giving seamless experience, how do we minimize paperwork? How do we ensure that we don't take documents which don't add to the credit decisioning process, or don't give greater comfort to the bank in terms of, the security which is required. So all of that, I think, actually started, in terms of in the late 2000s and got accelerated in the previous decade. And now, of course, what is happening is that, in the credit processing side, the government stack which came about, so I'm saying the Aadhaar, the Jan Dhan, and the eKYC. That stack has actually sort of also helped, the whole process of digitization and, moving to a faster turnaround time for the loan processing. Because as you know, nowadays, most of the KYC is eKYC, using Aadhaar at most times. Then we can use OCR technologies, along with artificial intelligence to reduce the reading time, the processing time, whether it's on the credit side largely or even on the liability side in terms of, your customer form processing. We could do a lot of, the recon, the reading of bank statements, can all be bot enabled. And, Conneqt is in the process of launching a couple of solutions to that effect. And we'll talk about it a little more in detail. So the change in the mindset of having one customer view, the use of, TAT as a competitive advantage enabled by the whole movement which the government started, in terms of simplifying, and moving towards digitization. And of course, the fact that, that banks then have adopted all of that, in terms of, OCR, AI, and minimizing the sort of just the number of documents which are required, all have sort of helped towards ultimately reducing the loan processing TAT and then the onboarding of customers.
No, sir. Actually, turnaround time is definitely becoming a competitive edge now. I remember those days when we talk about 24 hours turnaround time for credit cards. Somebody came and said we'll do it in 12 hours. Somebody said 6 hours. It keeps on. It's truly a differentiator. And thanks for that insight on various solutions possible to help onboard a customer in a rapid manner. That's a key takeaways. And thanks, Nazir, for that. Actually, So let's move on. Actually, let's quickly look at having seen this customer experience in operations. And I just want to understand the recent moratorium schemes announced by various central banks, especially in India by Reserve Bank of India. I just want to understand and hear views from Nalin. Nalin, yeah. So I want to hear from Nalin, having his experience on compliance and risk and being in retail banking. So these moratorium schemes that have been announced, and still I believe that there are a few banks, struggling on how to implement, while RBI has given the guidelines. So your views, Nalin, on this, and how do we make this customer experience seamless, smooth, ensure this RBI guidelines are taken in the back end by I'm not talking about just banks like yours in terms of NBFC, or it could be any finance houses actually. So your views on that, Nalin? Yeah.
Hi, Kalyan. Thank you so much, Kalyan, for having me here. And I think it's a very relevant question explanation to do in terms of what CX is. As we all know that CX really means to us is how a customer interacts with us and feels with us. To begin with, our customer experience really is that more than anything else. Specifically to what RBI did in terms of the moratorium schemes when it came in, as a CX. What was most important for this is that what is the information that has been given to the customer, your customers, every bank, every NBFC, whoever picks it up from there. Is it comprehensible by the customer? That is the most important point there. Once he comprehends it, is he able to take the right decision under the information, rather than we choosing and putting up this is good for you, bad for you, picking it up from the newspapers, articles, magazines, all over the place in the net. As a lender, I would have preferred to give him the information for him. This is your loan account. This is the amount you have. If you do this, this happens. If you do this, that happens. For specifically again to the moratorium scheme, I'll just restrict it to this question here. Getting the impact of every customer decision clearly laid out in front of him, that if you choose to not have the EMIs paid, this is what happens to your loan amount. While there was ambiguity in terms of what is going to happen at the end of the 6 months or 3 months when the government announced it, or the Reserve Bank of India really announced it, still there could have been permutation combinations as a lender, right? You could have capitalization done, or you could have interest waiver done, or whatever. You give 3 options, that if this happens. It just makes the customer take the decision which is right for him, easier for him, and a much more informed decision. Should this happen again, as a responsible financial institution, for a high CX involvement, I would prefer, every lender to be very, very transparent, disseminate the information that the customer wants in a timely manner, and giving him the impact. Let him take the decision and just give it to him. What happened this time was, while it was like too quick to happen, but information was not there. What happens to me? What is my calculation? People had to go and search for Excel sheets or some websites to figure out what will happen to me, what will not happen to me. For people who wanted to really take an informed decision, so that's the way I would like to really put it. Digital, of course, is the channel of delivery. How you deliver on the apps or on links that you give him. WhatsApp, whatever you want to do, it's just a channel of delivery which will attune to it. And needless to say, it has to be made easier for the customers. Honestly, it was now, as a moratorium point, it had to be made easier. Maybe just an SMS based or OTP based is what really should have come out of it. Again, I will just go a little step further and say, should it happen again, this is what all financial institutions should focus on, because that is real CX. That is where the customer will give you loyalty from the CX perspective, that yes, I knew when I took this decision, rather than 6 months later, realizing I don't know what happened and now I have to live with it. That's my view on this, Kalyan.
Superb, Nalin. Actually, the key takeaways here is basically transparent communication and making the process and procedure simple and easy so that the customer will understand. And I think many of the banks did that in a beautiful way in India as well. I could clearly see that, but some banks are still struggling actually. Either the communication has not gone transparently, as you rightly said, or the communication was not expanded or elaborated in the way they should listen to or understand to from whatever the RBI guidelines are. Thanks, Nalin, for that. So quickly, let's jump to the customer experience back actually to Abdulaziz actually on the service promise and service guarantee. I know Abdulaziz, you spoke about wowing a customer, helping the customer, going beyond the call of duty, going beyond must-have to a wow experience. So I know that in the last 1 or 2 decades, I've seen banks offering some service guarantees, as they call it actually, while it's basically service promise fulfillment. And they even go to the extent of saying that, okay, I'll give you a service guarantee if I fail, and I make sure that my backend process is very good. And if I fail, I will even waive the annual fees and so on and so forth. These are all some of the, is that a marketing gimmick or is it really happening? What are your thoughts on that, Abdulaziz?
No, actually, I can start by saying it's really happening. See, actually, last year, or 2 years back, we have started implementing this Lean Six Sigma method in our bank, which is, to be honest, has helped us a lot in across all the way. Be it staff mindset, be it back-end process, be it service level to the customers, be it STP processes, straight through the process. But in the meantime, we also have a belief that I will go back to the people who are providing the service to the customers, whom are either the staff. Now, starting by saying that unless he believes it, he cannot deliver it. We believe that everything has to be start from within. I mean, if I'm planning to have a straight through process for my customers, my staff first should have it. So I will give an example. Actually, we start by re-engineering the loans or the process of giving loan facility to our customers. So as per direction from our CEO, he said, I need you people first to go and fix the loan process for our internal customer, whom they are the staff. So talking about that, saying that previously, if it used to take days to credit the amount to the staff account, now it takes 5 minutes. So now we have actually promised them that the moment you apply through the right these channels, provide the right documents to the bank, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we promise you that your loan will be credited to your account within 24 hours. Now our promise was 24 hours, but we are giving them beyond their expectation, where we credit the amount to their account in 5 minutes. Here I'm talking about the staff. So now since he feel it, how it's a amazing experience if I just request, and I was expected to wait for 24 hours, and within 5 to 10 minutes I got an SMS that your amount has been credited. So that feeling, he will be very happy now to deliver it to the customers, and he will make sure that it's happening to the customers as well, the same way he has received it. So building on that, saying that unless he feel it, he cannot deliver it. Now he feel it, he can deliver it. However, fulfilling the promises and making sure that everything as the customers requested and doing things instant. We have something also in our mobile called instant transfer. Transfer from bank to bank, it's an instant. The moment you click the button, automatically the other account in other banks will be received. It's an instant. Now, believing on digital, believing that instant, believing on the back-end process, also I'm a big believer that someone has to monitor that, because a failure can happen. And everybody believes that everything is happening right, and failure somewhere, because this is a technology. It's a computer, anything can happen. It's a network. So unless we monitor that failures through, again, a proper process at the back end. So for example, if there is 100 requests from a customer, one has failed, we have to be intimated. We have to go and fix it, and we have to be alerted. We have to communicate to the customer, and we have to fix it. So fulfilling the promise, that is must. However, monitoring whatever we have given, that's also another must. Actually, we are thinking now next year to have something called instant loan facility. It means that the customer normally, if he open an account today, he require at least minimum 1 month to get his facility. He has to receive his salary. He has to get other documentation. So we are thinking to change the game by giving instant. The day you open your account, the same day you can get your credit facility in your account. So we are working on that. We hope we will succeed on that, because we will do some. I mean, our KYC will be there, our check will be there. That's for sure. But again, guarantee it's a good as much as you monitor.
Absolutely.
And it will be a very big killer in the market if you promise something and you don't deliver it, because the damage will happen in the market and with the customers. It will be really too much to try and rectify that. So I'm with the direction of giving STP processes. Promise your customer. In the meantime, you have to be careful. You have to monitor. You have to watch. You have to see the behavior. You have to see the action of the customer from here to there. So here and there, I don't know. I keep saying balance. Keep the balance between fully digitized and monitoring, and make sure that the things has been happened as that. I want to close my answer by saying I'm a big believer of Lean Six Sigma method. It is really a mindset shift, be it in banking service, person himself, life, everywhere. So Lean Six Sigma is something I can only say it's an amazing method. It's really taking you to the second side. Of the table, of the word, of the thinking, because you will discover that you are very happy with what you used to do, and using this method will tell you that you have to change your thinking. You have to think differently at the banking level, at the personal level, everywhere. I hope my answer was to the point you are raising.
Absolutely. Thank you, Abdulaziz. You made a right point actually, where service, it's not about just service promise, service guarantee. It's also important that we have to make the processes actually good, using methodologies like Lean Six Sigma or whatever, and make sure that this is seamlessly integrated. And after all, we're dealing with human beings, we have to be careful of that. Thanks, Abdulaziz, for that. So let's move on quickly. Having seen the operations, customer experience and all, let's look at the credit approval process and how does that impact. And this is my question to Nalin. Having in my experience with banking, the question of how we are matured from a demography to a psychography. Psychography being lifestyles, attitudes, behaviors, patterns, the way we do the credit approval processing. And Nalin, actually, you would have seen, and many of us would have seen, the fight between the operations and the credit in terms of what happens between the sales, operations and credit actually. So the credit approval, your perspective in terms of how to look at it, whatever the requirements from a demography point of view and a psychography. Quickly, your views.
Thanks, Kalyan, again. Demographics has been playing a very, very important role, and I think that's what it is that we use today. Apart from various other things, to really assess a customer from giving any kind of credit worthiness. Psychographics definitely goes beyond the limited classification of demographics. I completely agree on that part, and it is a very, very powerful tool. But I think it is in a nascent stage. The acceptability with the lending institutions, with the customer per se, is very, very limited as of right now. It requires there are a lot of companies who are building these questionnaires, tests for people to administer, and for us to get some. That's how you get the psychographics around the thing. Customers are not happy doing that. Lenders are not confident about accepting it. Will it work, not work? So I think it's still a long way to go in terms of understanding from that perspective. At the end, if you look at what are we looking at, we are looking at the credit worthiness, of the customer. Credit worthiness is a couple of things there. There is an ability to pay in future, which is determined by income, current income, and what the profile is and how it is going to be there. And the second biggest aspect now has become the behavior. Behavior will drive intent, of the customer to pay, which is what the psychographic really needs to comes to answer, that is there an intent for the customer to pay, or he doesn't have an intent in the future to pay around it. While there's a third aspect called circumstances, which remains constant. You can't help it. Today you're in a good circumstance, tomorrow you can be in a bad circumstance. So these are the three large areas how you really measure the credit worthiness around it. The psychographics tends to answer the intent, but there is no there are tests around it, but customers are very not happy giving them, right? They're long tests, they're like 50 questions, because that's how you can really drive a customer behavior. You have to ask the same question 4 times and then see consistency in a psychographic test to really come out with the reality. Now, a guy who's taking a loan, or a customer who's taking a loan from you, is happy to answer that question once, and is not happy to answer that 50-pager to give the loan. That's where it is right now. I think it's in the nascent stage. The acceptability has to build in. It's powerful. It's coming. It's in future. It's not there yet. So I don't have any data to tell you that this is really going to help. But I believe that it is going to be the next big thing. The moment it is there, I'm sure again digital delivery will happen. Companies will the moment there is proof of concept, there will be enough and more digital solutions that will really come in and make this easier. I think we are all waiting for proof of concept on the whole psychographic credit worthiness. It's there in bits and pieces, but I think large scale acceptability is not really there as of right now. Is what my views on.
Correct, absolutely, Nalin. Thank you very much. Because in fact, I work with some academia as well, apart from industry. So we work on computer vision laboratories where we look for the shrinkage that you see on a face of a customer. From there, we're trying to find out quantitatively if he is happy or not happy visiting a branch. So to that level, digital interventions are helping us to understand indirectly rather than a questionnaire type of a thing, like what you said. But you're right, actually. I mean, it's all in testing stage, but that's going to be future with AI, artificial intelligence, and the biometrics and various other things, and the patterns analysis, pattern recognition. These are going to play a big role in the future, and that's what we're looking forward to. And let's see how best we can tackle those things. Thanks, Nalin, for that.
Absolutely.
So quickly, while we discuss on this, actually, process, procedure, customer experience, technology, it's important now quickly to get an audience poll and their, understanding. See, safety and security is a very critical aspect of any banking, be it a service provider, because he has to safeguard the money, and as well from a customer perspective, because the bank is to safeguard my money, actually. So I just want to quickly get on to a next poll, where I just want to ask the audience a simple question. Do you feel safe and secure using mobile banking? How many of you agree? How many of you disagree? Audience, please. 67% of the audience feel safe and secure using mobile banking. There's still 30%, that's quite a big number, who disagree, because they still have some sense of doubt in using mobile banking for any of their transactions. And let's add on to this, actually. Let's hear from Nazar. So the next question that I would want to hear from the response from Nazar is that, I mean, we've always been focusing as a service provider on efficiency, which is the speed of processing. Now, it's also important that we need to understand the customer requirements and fulfill, so which is the effectiveness part. Now that the audience have, it's just a sample, maybe the numbers could vary, but I'm saying at least even if 30% believe that they're not safe using mobile banking, I just want to hear from Nazar your views on, the efficiency versus effectiveness. How do you balance using a digital solution like mobile banking in the context of what the audience have voted for? Nazar?
Kalyan, we need to draw the distinction in terms of, where the risk perception lies, and maybe that's where the sort of background to the question was, So, when you use mobile banking to do funds transfers, or, or request maybe a checkbook or something like that, that has a much higher risk perception. And I think that's where the discomfort with mobile banking comes in, the fear that, hacksters or, people, could be parted with their money, Now, when you talk of credit processing, coming back to your specific question, I think that is used largely to sort of upload data, in terms of, whether you upload your IT returns or whether you upload your salary slips or your bank statements. And the risk is no different, I mean, in the early days, I remember, you'd have a dock boy coming, and you would give photocopies, Now, there is a large chance of the dock boy himself misusing, and we have seen cases, where, documents have been misused by intermediaries, to actually sort of, get fraudulent loans sanctioned by other organizations. So, in my mind, actually, the risk perception actually comes down a bit when you use digital channels, to share documents, upload your documents, which is a very, very key component of then reducing, your turnaround times for the loan processing is concerned. So I don't think there is any conflict in both. I mean, I think efficiency and effectiveness sort of both go hand in hand. And, only sort of, if you are effective, can you actually sort of, get the efficiency metrics, which a customer wants, And as I mentioned in my earlier answer also, a lot of the AI-based tools and technologies actually help us achieve that. But uploading documents is just the first step, and I don't see any significant risk in that.
Excellent, Nadir. Yeah, absolutely. It goes hand in hand. Actually, you can't compromise one over the other. Thanks for that insight, Nadir, actually. So let's move on actually quickly to Thompson, and then from his digital and technology experience, I just want to understand from Thompson. I mean, we've been talking about those days a decade before on iBanking, then we moved on to mobile banking. Now we are talking about biometric banking, using touchless, contactless nowadays during the pandemic. So what's next, Thompson? What is your view on this? What's next?
Very interesting question. Because evolution, like the previous subject we spoke about, also this information has really accelerated. So just on the last word you spoke about, biometric itself is a huge subject by itself. It's moved so much, and a lot of things have been happening globally. Maybe just a question of whether who's adopting it first. Now, maybe I can just quickly cite some examples, like right from a Royal Bank of Scotland, which had payment cards, biometrics, to Barclays, which has unique vein readers, to voice authentication, so forth. So I think there's no dearth for such innovation, which has been happening, the world around us. But I think the moot point I would probably go back, Kalyan, is being, my first love in terms of industry being in telecom. So probably I'll take that and try and relate that to banking, is because the age of 5G. Maybe in India, we are a few quarters away from 5G, or maybe a year away, depending on how the telecom industry evolves. But globally, if you look at the age of 5G, will drive huge faster adoption of cloud infrastructure, and especially the bank in the cloud is not very far away. That's the first step, because a cloud will be a future norm in terms of enhanced security, governance, and powered by some of the next generation technologies like blockchain. Blockchain has been around for some time. All of us know cryptocurrency, but if you look at the foundations of blockchain, it really helps us enhance traceability, trackability of transactions, brings this entire self-managed ecosystem of compliance. So this is going to be a very integral part of our future bank. That's one. The second important change which 5G will also bring forth for the bank is edge computing, because edge computing will complement cloud, because and when we kind of converge edge computing with IoT, the Internet of Things, I think the real true transformation will start happening. So that's the next wave I'm saying. Just to make edge computing for simple, from a layman's term perspective, edge computing is nothing but we move the entire processing, storage, security capabilities to the edge of the network. So when I say the edge of the networks, it's the consumer, like you and me, where the processing power and the capability is brought to the edge to our devices. So this actually changes the way the entire architecture will work in the future. And what I'm saying is not going to happen after maybe a decade, because the acceleration has happened that is going to happen in a few years from now. I mean, it's just a question of the moment we have 5G, this is going to happen. So, edge, if you look at it, what edge is going to do is increase security, because as I said, edge computing is bringing it to the edge of the network, bringing it to the consumer. So fundamentally, the probability of hackers hacking into your packet when it's interacting with your data center and the edge is all limited. So kind of it really increases security. Second, it reduces latency, because you look at it, the transaction time, the to and fro movement of it, all this will be reduced, because as a client, as a consumer, because it's again empowerment at your level, at edge level. It's going to reduce latency, so it's going to immensely increase customer experience. The third is the convergence of multiple edge devices. Today also we have edge devices, right? Everything is the edge, but the thing is how much it is edge computing ready, in terms of from an architecture perspective, whether it's your bank app or your ATM or your kiosk or any of these edge devices. Now, how do we kind of take these to a more unified performance to the next level? So the boost to IoT is going to happen. That's the third. And with all these constraints removed today, because you look at it today, even as a bank yourself, Kalyan, when you want to drive process improvements, the constraints are that how do I balance data security versus data privacy versus customer experience? So all this kind of barriers will be removed the moment we bring in edge computing architecture, and it increases innovation. And if you look at it, since we are now kind of brought the processing power, the storage, the security to the edge of the device, your cost of data center comes down. So it's going to kind of overall bring down the cost for the bank in terms of the overall end-to-end cost, because we have extremely, in a sense, drastically would have reduced the need for higher processing power in the data centers. So I think, broadly, this is the key trend I'm seeing, Kalyan, because we will quite, very quickly and swiftly migrate to the edge computing architecture. Yeah.
Excellent, Thompson. That's a powerful insight, actually. So from a service provider perspective, it's going to be economical in terms of infrastructure and whatever they're going to provide for a better customer experience. From a customer point of view, they're going to have a better customer experience, safety and security. All those 33% that we had in that poll will also be tackled, and hopefully we're looking for that kind of a good future with the digital intervention. Thanks, Thompson, for that. So let's quickly move on to Nalin for a question on a very typical thing that's always bothering my mind, actually, as a service provider. Let me wear a service provider hat now, be it a banking or an NBFC, So most of these industries today actually are facing a stiff competition. Today, banking was actually, and even today, is a highly regulated industry sector, as we all know, actually. But however, still it faces a very stiff competition from unrelated players. I can't believe that some telecom providers are coming in, Amazon is coming, some e-commerce, people are coming. How is this going to work out? What is your view on this, Nalin? Yeah.
Thanks, Kalyan. Again, it's a very tough question to answer, but I'll try and give it a stab here. There are two perspectives I have on this. One, yes, banks do face a bit of competition from unrelated quarters like e-com and telecom, but understand that bank is a very, very traditional business. Like you said, it's regulated. There is a bit of protection it has on the deposit side. That they are the only ones who can take deposit. The traditional banking, really, the ecosystem that they provide at the base of this thing is what is protected, by regulatory or by nature of the business, right? Because it's depositors' money at the end of the day. There has to be some watchdog or watch that we need to put on this piece. Now, when there is this competition that comes in, and my second perspective around this entire piece is that the new age that are coming in, the payment solutions or the lending experience that people are really getting it. It's just increasing the pie. It's just opening new segments and new customers through telecom, through e-commerce customers around it. I think there is more than competition. There is a lot of opportunity for creating synergies. If the mergers, or working together is what is important. The bank still knows how to manage the money best. It should be what they should focus on. The telecoms, the e-commerce, or any unrelated sectors are the ones who have the reach for distribution. They have the technology. just taking an example of telecom, the wireless, mobile sets or the service or the internet they provide will help the bank make the transactions easier. At the end of the day, the bank account remains with the bank. How to use that bank account is what the telecom or from that perspective e-commerce person will provide. They will acquire. So the overall pie increases when they work together as rather than calling them competition. I would say it's more synergies that it's creating with these things. The overall pie increases. Yes, there's a chip away from the traditional banking business where the payment fee revenue may just chip away to these providers, but they're very happy to get new. The biggest problem today is new segments and customers. At the end of the day, the bank just gets such a high plethora of reach. New customers, new segments open up, new products can come out. There's innovation in terms of banking, traditional banking products, as I may put it around it. So that's the way I put the perspective. So I think there is stiff competition, but it leads to more synergies. And hence, that's where the future should lie. A bit of working together, collaboration, maybe mergers from that perspective.
Oh, superb, Nalin. I think that reminds me of the term we use, co-opetition, collaborative competition, which creates synergies and helps the customers. As long as the customers get the maximum out of this, get the better experience, I think it's all welcome. So audience, please stay on. I think the discussion has been interesting. We've got a few more things and you've got exciting prizes also. So please stay on actually. So we're going to continue with this discussion for a few more minutes and then we'll jump on to the questions from the audience. So let's move on to the next one, which is another critical aspect in banking and as well financial services, Nalin, is that on document fraud, authentication. I mean, today we have interfaces with Aadhaar, UIDA, all those external government websites, and you can still do an authentication without a document being provided. But still, as a sector, we always face this problem where there is always some amount of concerns around fraudulent practices on document submission, copies, and so on and so forth. What are your quick views on this, Nalin? Top of your mind? Yeah.
Again, so document tampering is indeed a critical issue. There's no denial about it. My view here is that the digitization, like you said, is really helping us resolve it more than doing anything else. What was happening in the traditional thing? I get a document, I get a copy of the PAN card, which traditionally, the banker has to see in original and get it. That was the foolproof idea that I had earlier. Now I get a copy of the document. And I may not even need a copy of the document. The open API structure, especially in India, which allows us to pull details from the issuers, really helps us that it is authentic information. There are fintechs which are coming up with, sites for income tax data, GST data. It just gives us more authentic data much quicker, much faster. So I think they're solving the problem. The problem is the acceptability. The customers have to be acceptable to give the user right or access to the bankers to provide that. The new stack that the government is building here, which is around the whole banking space, where the banks will have to share the bank statements with the lenders if the customer chooses to do that. That will solve all your problem, right? So you have customer authentication being solved, verification of employment income is already solved, documents you can pull from the data, and now we'll get even bank statements from the banks, directly from the source around it. I think digitization really is helping us solve this fraud problem than anything else. Yes, an exceptionally fraudulent customer or so to say a person who really wants to fraud us, I think he's the one who's going to stay away from digitization and ask you still to give you physical documents. So my view really is that the digitization is going to solve the problem rather than add a risk to it in the future. It's a phase right now.
Absolutely, Nalin. I think I completely resonate on that thought actually, because I'm also synced with your thoughts, because if the issuer himself is authenticating, there is no question of documents and it's going to help us only. We always believe 99.9% of the customers are genuine. They want to really do banking and as a business. But unfortunately, we set up rules for those 0.1% who end up being, I always tell the bankers, are you're treating a good customer like a bad customer. It's like, you are proven guilty. You are innocent until proven guilty, or the other way around. Anyways, thanks, Nalin, for that wonderful insight. So one quick last question from my point, and then I'll open this forum to the audience for the questions. So this is to Nazir. So Nazar, you have rich experience in managing regulators, various stakeholders. Now, I would like to know your views on, the challenges that we face as a service provider. How do we balance this, the act of managing these stakeholders, be it a regulator versus a customer, or it could be even society. Sometimes actually most of our business impact the society as well, and even the employee. So I just want to hear your views on, the balancing act between how do we manage these stakeholders, Nazar.
Sure. In my mind, Kalyan, I think the operating back end, and by that I mean not only the back office, but everything which supports the end customer experience. I think it's extremely critical to get that right. Yeah. So that includes your processes, that includes your controls, that includes your governance mechanisms, and that actually impacts pretty widespread across the spectrum. Yeah. So, I mean, we have seen, and all of us have been experienced in this, that a lot of the complaints, for example, or the customer dissatisfaction comes because something has gone wrong, in some process of some transaction. We have also seen in the past that at least maybe anywhere between 20 and 30% of the calls which come into your call center, or the customer reach out channel, any customer reach out channel, is again linked to a problem transaction. Yeah. So, from an employee perspective, from a customer perspective, I think it's absolutely critical, that, we look at, how we sort of structure the processing part of the customer experience. Yeah. Once you get that right, I think some of the other things automatically, fall into place, so whether it's regulatory reporting. So let's again take regulatory reporting. What we have now increasingly seen is that, if you have a centralized platform, and many of the banks, have moved to different versions of, a data warehouse, either on-prem or in the cloud, which actually sort of pulls all the data together, which makes your regulatory reporting, more accurate, more timely, and gives a one view of, whatever the regulatory reporting could be. I remember in the early 90s, again, your RBI reporting was, completely a manual process, and it was not even manual, but each geography had a different one. Yeah. So you had some even in Kolkata submitting theirs, and some returns in Bombay, and all of that, would take the regulatory reporting team the whole month and keep them busy. Yeah. So technology has played a fairly significant part, in sort of streamlining the reporting, making it more accurate, making it more timely. Of course, the challenges which we have seen, and equally we have also seen a lot of regulatory oversight. We have seen a lot of, very, very marquee names also been subjected to large amounts of fines, over the last 2 decades. But that is, I think, sometimes, more an intent issue at times. So some of those cases, of course, are more basic in terms of what is reported, what is not reported. The other is, of course, banks taking, benefit, if I can use the word, of certain gray areas in the legislation, but some of those fines are more linked to know your customer failures primarily, and, at a corporate level. And, that's where we have seen some of those fines happening. And, and very rarely you see those kind of fines in the retail space, because those kind of stuff is more in the corporate or the wholesale space, which we see all the challenges sometimes which banks or other financial institutions face. So I would put it this way, that, I don't think there is any conflict in managing the stakeholders. A good technology, a good back-end process, which is now, of course, enabled, and accelerated by digital, actually sort of takes care of, all of this. And then, of course, you get the analytics also, because, a part of the regulatory reporting has a lot to do with analytics and how do we sort of mitigate some of the risks which come out of the operation. So that also sort of, comes out of it, because as we all know, a loss of trust, either from the consumer side or from the regulator side, is absolutely disastrous, for a banking institution or a financial institution, because trust is at the core of, banking transactions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nauzar. I mean, that's a powerful insight which you made actually as a remark in terms of regulators. They want a timely report, they want an accurate report, single source of truth. For a customer, it's seamless customer experience, safety and security in terms of banking, society, protecting the environment, employee side also caring and sharing. So in all aspects, I think we all believe that digital can be powerfully and used positively to impact all the stakeholders and balance their interests.
Absolutely.
So I think this is time now to open the forum for questions from audience. We'll wait for a few minutes. I request the audience to post their questions on the questions panel there, questions tab actually, so that I can direct it to the right panelist, so that we can hear from the panelist on those questions. Yeah. So audience, please post your questions. Your questions and your suggestions in the chat box. Please add your suggestions for the banking and financial services, what can be done differently. And I can assure you that the organizers have got something in store for you as an exciting prize. Post the event, the panelists will be able to share with you actually. Please do participate, and I want this to be more interactive so that we make the best use of the time with the panelists. The next phase, I'll just give a couple of minutes actually. So one question probably is to Thompson. Thompson, this question is about human versus humanoid experience, and how does it differ? What are your views, quick views on this actually, Thompson?
See, as I said in my initial thing, the humanoid experience has to be seamless. They have to coexist, and they have to be an ecosystem which works together, and they have to be self-learning. And in my view, the human always has to be the master of the humanoid, so that we prevent a Terminator 2 or a Terminator 3 scenario for all of us, actually.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that. And I think there are a few more suggestions coming in. Actually, let's see. Actually, I think Nalin has a hard stop at 1:15. So let me thank all of especially Nalin actually, and I'll wait to thank others as well. And we have got one more thing to conclude before we conclude this virtual forum. So Nalin, thank you very much for your presence here. I mean, it's been great actually, insights. Your insights, especially on banking and regulation and risk and compliance, has been very useful. Thank you so much actually. Okay.
Thanks so much, Kalyan, and it was a pleasure being here. And thank you everyone. Thank you all the participants and Conneqt and CII for having me here. And thank you again. Sorry, I have to really leave right now. So
thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, now let me hand over this to Rishi. We got some Loan Conneqt launch actually. So over to you, Rishi, and then we'll get on to the concluding remarks.
Thanks, Kalyan, and it was great hearing and learning from the panelists. And I will take just a minute to briefly explain. I know that this is more of a knowledge sharing. So we at Conneqt, we have built a solution called Loan Conneqt. If you go on the next slide, please. We have developed Loan Conneqt, which is end-to-end loan management solution for banking and the banking industry. And please go on the next slide. I know that everyone got a little late, so I'm trying to rush it. And I know that we will have the complete product launch very soon. So just wanted to give a quick teaser. So Loan Conneqt, it's end-to-end loan management operations solution what we have built, and it is basically giving all the BFSI customers they can transfer up to 80% their customer queries to digital workforce. I know there was a question, Kalyan, you had on the same line, and then also with this solution we are looking like 70% plus savings and faster processing of loan management, and we cover the life cycle which moves from the lead qualification to dispute handling and compliance, and it is all accelerated by the different digital solutions. I know we will go deep dive when we will have the launch. So all the audience, thank you for this event, and here I will just say that we are launching our product next week on 12th November. So look forward to all to attend and see the details about this product launch. Thank you. Thanks, Kalyan.
Thanks, Rishi. That's we are quite excited to see that product launch, and I'm sure it will help deliver a great customer experience, making the back-end processes robust actually in terms of how we give the loan management. Thank you so much.